Replay, Positioning Yourself as an Authority with Mike Saunders, episode 215. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today I'm continuing the replays of the information product interviews that we did back in May and June of 2020. These were amazingly impactful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage you to go back to episode 213, where I did the replay of lawyers are leaving money on the table, lots of it. And in that episode, I lay out the foundation of understanding how you can use information products in the growth of your law firm and the power that information products have and the size of the industry. It is just an opportunity that's massive, and this is something that's so new. It's not being implemented by many attorneys at all, and it's your opportunity to set yourself apart from other law firm owners. It's your opportunity to capture market share and clients from an area that they're not even looking for you yet. This is just an amazing opportunity, and I can't stress enough if you have the ability to think outside of the box, to think outside of the traditional legal practice and be willing to think a little bit differently, you can change your world with information products. And I am just making the case for that over and over again with these interviews. This is an amazing conversation I have with Mike Saunders, all about what he does with positioning himself as an authority or helping people position themselves as an authority using podcasting as well as book publishing. And it's just a great conversation. Very, very popular episode, downloaded a lot by a lot of our listeners. It's really exciting to be able to share that with you again here as a replay. Now, I just want to remind you, we have an upcoming event, the Hidden Revenue Stream event, where we're going to lay out the foundations of how the step-by-step process and how you can implement information products in your law firm. You want to join us for that day for free. It's happening on June 15th, and you can sign up for it at profitwithlaw.com/hidden revenue, profitwithlaw.com/hidden revenue. Here's the replay of that episode now. If you're a subscriber to this show, you're enjoying the show, and you haven't taken the time to rate and review the show, let me tell you what you're doing. What you're doing is you're robbing somebody else from getting the pleasure that you're getting from listening to this show. Because what happens is somebody goes and checks out, hey, I'm interested in law firm, growing a law firm. They put it in the podcast player. They look up, and 5 shows come up. And my show comes up, and there's only 3 reviews. And 5 stars, but there's only 3 reviews on it. And they look at another one, and it's got 20 reviews. Which one are they choosing to listen to? Yep, you got it. So what we need you to do as listeners, if you're really enjoying the show, is just take a moment and click that rate and review and just give us a rating and review. You don't have to rate us 5 stars. If you're not enjoying the show that much, then give us less than that. But just give us something so that we have that quantity of reviews that people look at for that social proof that this is something worth my while to check out. And you're not doing it for me. You're doing it for the other person, the person who might be walking by, who might be missing that opportunity. Now, if this is your first time here, definitely hit that subscribe button if you like this show, because then you'll get notified every time a new show goes live, which is every Tuesday and Thursday. We do Tuesdays a solo episode with yours truly. Thursdays we have guests like our guest today. So who is that? Well, today we're talking with Mike Saunders. Mike Saunders is the president and founder of Authority Positioning Coach. And Mike is quite a qualified guest, might I add. We'll give him a little bit of this intro here. He's a speaker, best-selling author of 4 books, and a successful business coach who holds an MBA in marketing. Now, Mike is also an adjunct marketing professor at several universities and a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. I don't even know what that is. Maybe we'll ask him about that. He has interviewed hundreds of industry experts on his podcast, and I love having other podcast hosts on the show here. We always end up with a good, polished conversation. Love that. And is always striving to learn from other thought leaders. Mike is most passionate about seeing his family grow up with high spiritual values and providing them opportunities to succeed in life. He's heavily involved in his local church and is focused on teaching others the benefits of giving and serving. And you can learn more about him by going to authoritypositioningcoach.com. We'll link up anything that we reference in this episode in the show notes, so you can definitely check that out there. Our show notes are always listed as the description of the podcast episode, but you can also go to profitwithlaw.com / and the number of the episode. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Moshe. Hey, appreciate that introduction. And I want to make a point about what you said about the subscribe, because I've literally never heard that before in an intro. And I really love how you do that. And there's another point that people need to keep in mind. Yes, it's for other people. And yes, it helps you and your show. But here's something else. Most people listening to this show have a business, have a law firm. And wouldn't they want their clients to give reviews to their practice? So it kind of is that whole flow. When you're in the flow of giving and serving that way with a review for your podcast, then it keeps the mindset open for your clients that might even see your review for this podcast and make them think, I'm going to give a review to my friend, the attorney, so-and-so. So I think that's another really big thing to keep in mind. But thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love your work.
Awesome for that. Thank you, Mike. So somehow we got connected on LinkedIn, and I think you had seen my law firm growth summit, connected with me, reached out to me, and what really was interesting to me was you took the time to record a personal video to introduce yourself to me, and nobody does that. And it's a problem, right? People should be doing that, right? Yeah. They should be taking the time to put a little bit of effort into a relationship if you're trying to establish a relationship with somebody. But it was something that was unique. It stood out. And not only did it stand out, but I kind of forgot to get back to you at some point. And then I don't remember if you reminded me, you pinged me again, or if it just popped up that, I realized that I hadn't got back to you. And then I remembered, yes, he's the guy who recorded that video for me. And that compelled me to say, okay, I really need to get back in touch with him and get him back on here. So
that's huge.
Very interesting approach that you took. And I take notes with stuff like that. There's a fellow who's in my local networking group. So there's a local networking group that I'm on the board there, and I really have the reason I'm part of that is because my entire business is virtual, and I just crave that in-person connection. Yeah. So I don't even have a potential business from there. I mean, there are a couple of attorneys in there, but it's like, that's not why I'm there. I'm there just to be a member of something, to serve, to be a part of, a group that gets together and help other people with their growth. But there's a guy in there who, he posted on LinkedIn, and I commented on his post, and he sent me a personal message thanking me for interacting with his post the day before, like the next day. Yeah. And that made such an impact on me. And it's these kinds of things when you see somebody does something and it makes an impact on you, and you're like, wow, that was impressive.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And I use that approach very frequently and get very infrequent feedback that way. But when it's really substantial, like what you just mentioned. So I want to say this. What we need to remember is, you mentioned LinkedIn, and that's a social media platform. It's not a blast media platform. It's not let me get this software and just blast out to get, the scrape the cream off of the crop. It's a relationship building platform. And probably you, like me, have clients where we work really close with one-on-one. I don't have 4,000 clients. I couldn't handle that. I don't want that. I have deep relationships. And when I go back to my review testimonials that come in either written or video, over and over, it is what a team we make and how passionate Mike is about helping me out. But here's the thing that we have to think about in marketing. And let me ask you this question. Have you read Seth Godin?
I've read multiple books from Seth.
That's why I said, have you read Seth Godin? Because it's not pick a book. It's like, please, Seth, write another book so I can read your book. But how about his Purple Cow? right?
Yep,
So
absolutely.
it's being remarkable. It's not being weird, because think of it like this. What would happen, we all at tax time, we see the Statue of Liberty people with the cape, and they're twirling the sign on the side of the road. That attracts a certain demographic. If you are a high-end CPA, or if you're a high-end law firm, you're not going to hire people that go out there and spin signs. That's not the clientele we want to attract. We want to attract people that we can really dive into. So we have to stand out, but stand out in the right way. So the way Seth Godin mentions it in Purple Cow is, we have to be remarkable, but we have to be worthy of being remarkable and being remarked about. So sometimes it's not being in your face and over. Like if I'd sent you 19 videos, have been like, okay, the first one was good, but back off. So it's enough just to be memorable, and then let's just, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So thank you for saying that. But that's a big thing and that really is a catalyst for what I do, because what I do is marketing, but anybody, their brother, can do marketing. I do marketing that makes you stand out and be seen as an expert and an authority. And you might think that an attorney is an authority with the letters after their name, but you have a competitor or 10. Right? So you have to find ways to stand out so people see you immediately as that authority. And sometimes it's that intrinsic subconscious feeling of, that guy's trustworthy. And why is that? Well, maybe they sent a handwritten note. Maybe they did that little video, but it wasn't some blast email marketing campaign that's very impersonal.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was one point that I wanted to make about experiencing it, and I'm guilty, by the way, folks. I have not implemented this strategy personally, either of these strategies. But when you notice that something got your attention, take note and try to implement that on your end. Because that's where I think, people, we have these experiences all the time where somebody catches our attention and we forget to focus and pay attention to why is it that caught my attention? What made an impression on me? How did it make me feel? If it made me feel really good and it caught my attention, then maybe that's something I should try doing when in my own efforts of marketing out there. You said that you're looking to build a small quantity of relationships. In my business, I started with the one-on-one coaching, and honestly, I've found that I enjoy group coaching far better than one-on-one coaching personally. Like that's just what works for me. And when I'm trying to attract a group, that it starts at 10, maybe it's 20, 30, 40, 50, at some point, it could be a group of 100. It might be difficult to be sending 100 personal videos to new connections on a regular basis. So it may, it may work for a time for me. So you have to figure out what's the thing that works for you, but pay attention to the
how you can make that work. So this is an idea. As you were mentioning something, I thought of the counter, the antithesis. So you have to notice what you notice, right? And put that to work in your business. But what if you notice something that you don't like? So here's an example. We've all been on Facebook and we've gotten those bot messages, right? Mm-hmm. I don't relate to those. I hate those. And they tend to come from people I'm already connected to. And I know you're not sending that to me. It's some bot. So I notice that, but I'm not going to implement that in my business because I notice and recognize that doesn't feel personal, doesn't work for me. So no, you can send me the sales page for how to increase your practice with using Facebook bots. I'm not going to do it. But here's just a thought for what you were mentioning. What if every single person you connect with on LinkedIn, you send a personalized video? But to your point, you get into the dozens and dozens and hundreds. But what if you simply said, hey, Moshe here, just wanted to thank you real quick for connecting on LinkedIn. Look forward to developing a relationship. Give me a call sometime. Hey, got to go. Have a nice day. You didn't say their name. You could do a really quick acknowledgement video that goes right to those new connections, and they're going to feel that it was personal enough. It's better than just a nothing response. And then only for the ones you really want to make a big impact, you do like a specific one with their name. But anyway, it's all about standing out in the right way and being seen as someone that cares, because as we know, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much we care. And some of those little things really are ways that makes people go, you know what? Yeah, I know you're an attorney, or yeah, I know you, but boy, that caught my attention. So now how can you help me? So I think that's a really big piece. We hadn't even planned on talking about those things, but those are really big ahas.
Yeah. And there's a tool that I use during the Law Firm Growth Summit called Bonjoro. I don't know if you've heard of it, but Bonjoro interacts with your email marketing system, and you can basically have it queue up people based on subscribing to a specific list or getting a certain tag on your list. And it's a video delivery system. So it has an app on your phone, and you can have templates pre-created. So if there's an action you want them to take. So for example, I used Bonjoro to send a message to my speakers the day that their session went live to tell them the best ways to promote the fact that they're on the summit. Yeah. Now, obviously, I'm trying to get them to promote the summit, right? That's my goal. But at the same time, I want them to benefit as a speaker of the event. I want them to get the benefit that's potentially there for them, and therefore I want to educate them on how to do that. So it was I used that tool for that purpose, but you can use it for anything. So you can use it. Somebody downloads a specific thing, and that means that they're interested in potentially a consult rather than just having a follow-up email from that or just having a phone call come from your firm. You can do a video, like a real quick video on your iPhone that just says, hey, Mike, I see that you signed up for XYZ. I hope you really enjoy it. We spent a lot of time and effort putting that together for you, but I know that the next step is for you to come in for a consult. I'd love to get a chance to meet you and discuss your needs. Just click the button below this video if you want to schedule that consult. Yeah. Boom.
Because what are your competitors doing? So again, as an attorney, if you have that lead generation magnet of whatever, white paper, whatever that it is, so does your competitors. Probably, because that's an easy thing. That's a low barrier. So if they have that, and the only difference is your name and maybe your perspective, they don't know until they download it. So when they download it, does it collect digital dust, or do they just go, yeah, whatever, here's this automated canned email messages, or it gets interjected with one video like what you mentioned? I think that is the thing that makes people go, okay, I'm going to put them on the short list and continue to do a little due diligence, but maybe that is a follow-up phone call before they come in to meet. But that really is what it's all about, because as you probably know, Bob Berg, the Go-Giver, I've interviewed him several times on my podcast, and it's just that whole idea of giving and serving and giving extra value to make you stand out. And at some point, people will say, man, how can I help you? You just give so much. And that's where you want it to be. You want the scales to be tipped in the right direction. Because it's all about them, right? It's all about the other person. It's not about you.
And the other thing to think about is you're putting in a certain amount of effort, spend of time, spend of money to get that lead through the door.
Yeah.
If you can raise the percentage of the conversion, then it takes less effort on the front end to bring in more clients on the back end. And that's the key is when you have, and in marketing language, they call it a marketing funnel, but whatever you want to call it. But if you have this system or you have this funnel that's bringing people in, there's two ways to enhance that. You can either spend more on the front end to just bring more people in, or you can figure out all the touch points along the way that are converting at a certain percentage and figure out how do I raise the percentage of conversion at each of these steps. And if you raise it at enough of the points, you're going to have an exponentially large effect on the back end where you didn't have to do anything more on the front. You don't have to increase your marketing spend to have better results. You can just improve on your process.
Because you already did all this work to get in front of them, to get them to take step one. And now you don't want to get caught in that sea of sameness because your competitors are seeing the same offers that you are. Hey, go Facebook Live. Hey, do social media, do downloads, do all these things. But if you're one of the 1%ers, 2%ers that are actually doing that, that's what's probably going to get that call. And it doesn't need to quadruple your results. Just a small increase in the conversion is going to be a big thing. So what would that look like for you? Maybe you would never dream of doing a video, but maybe you can go, you know what? When they download my thing, we also drop something in the mail because we asked for their mailing address. I'm going to send a handwritten note with that. Or maybe it is something else, just some, personal touch, because people these days want to work with and deal with people. They don't want to be part of some machine. I think that's a big takeaway that people miss today.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mike, what's interesting is we jumped into this interview and we skipped the core component of what I always do with every guest when we start, which is to find out more about you. So I want to just take a step back. We'll go retract a little bit.
Yep.
We jumped right into the deep end here. I know that you have a book out called Authority Marketing for Law Firms. What I would like to know is just my audience might not know who you are. Let us know some of your backstory. How'd you get to becoming this authority positioning coach and to writing a book specifically for law firm owners? Maybe give us some of that backstory.
Yeah, so I spent about 12 years in the mortgage banking business and worked with one of the top banks out there. And then when 2007 hit, and we all know the crash, it just evaporated. So I went back, did my MBA in marketing, and then started my consulting firm. So this was 10 years ago, and I started making the same mistakes that many people make, which is I can do marketing for anybody at any time, doing anything, and come see me. And you need this, I'll do it. And you were the jack of all trades, but master of none. And so I then about 5 years ago refined my marketing practice down to one thing. I didn't want to necessarily only say I only work with plumbers or whatever the case is. I wanted to do one thing for anybody because anything works for any industry. So rather than being a marketing consultant and getting lumped in with those spam emails and phone calls we get from India every other day, I found a small group of consultants that we mastermind together, and we talk about how to be seen as that expert and that authority. And that's when the light bulb went off. And let me tell you, in my life, what happened. Have you ever heard of the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center?
No.
It's a division of the SBA, so the Small Business Administration, and they give free and unlimited advice to business owners, helping them start up, grow in all areas. So I've been consulting with them for 10 years. In fact, during my MBA, I was doing some research, contacted the local one here in Denver, and they came back and said, hey, can you come in and do some consulting because we need, marketing help. So anyway, I distinctly remember at one of the meetings, I had just come out with my very first book, and it was on business social media. And I was like, hey, guys, great meeting. And there's like 9 consultants around the table, and I was like, hey, I brought a copy of my latest book, my first book, to give everyone. And it was like, oh, that is so awesome, thank you so much. And like 2 days later, one of the men called me back or emailed me and said, hey, could you come give a presentation to my class? I teach at this university down the road. And I was like, yeah. And so I gave a presentation, and then that led to a contract worth $9,000 teaching for them. And I 1000% track it back to getting attention in the right way, having a book. It wasn't like, hey guys, I came out with this blog post. It's pretty cool. You ought to read it. And they're like, yeah, whatever. This book caught attention. It got a guest speaking opportunity, and it turned into business. So I was like, hold up. I've been doing all of these, whatever, you can name it, we don't even need to name tactics, but all the marketing tactics out there that are spray and pray. But when you can do more of a pointed marketing authority positioning approach, now the light bulb goes off. So I started offering these services, and I literally just cleared the deck on my business, stopped doing social media marketing, SEO, text message, whatever. And I did one thing. How can I help other entrepreneurs and business owners do exactly what I just did, which is get noticed for the right reasons? So I literally have like 3 offerings. And it's so cool to be able to go, you know what, you build 3 houses a year as a custom builder. You probably don't need this, but let me give you some helpful tips. But what I do is I work with people to help them be seen as that celebrity expert with very little of their time, because I have done for you packages. Well, anyway, how I evolved into that is seeing that I started working with some attorneys, and it's like, you know what, you go to law school and you don't get how to build your practice. We know that, but they're falling prey to all of these things out there that just either don't work or take so much of their time. So I adapted one of my teachings on authority positioning, and I structured this book, Authority Marketing for Law Firms, in a pretty unique way, because it has nothing to do with SEO, nothing to do with social media marketing, nothing to do with going live every day. It has all to do with the strategy and specific tactics on how to really stand out in front of specific industry sectors. So as an example, do you want to get, what are the highest paying cases that you could get? Maybe that is speaking in front of an industry association in telecommunications. Well, if you can be that industry expert because you wrote the book on that topic, or you have a podcast on that topic, now you might get invited to speak live or virtually. And then now that turns into large cases. I'm not talking about running Facebook ads. I'm talking about taking your intellectual capital, your thought leadership, and putting them into what I call authority positioning assets which are long-term things that work for you forever. Because how long does a Facebook ad campaign work? As long as you keep feeding the machine. So that's the big thing, is these long-term assets. How could you be seen as the expert and not take hardly any of your time? Because if it's done for you, then you're like, okay, I can do that. Hand it to me. Tell me the 3 things to do, and my staff can take it from there. And then it really just elevates your game.
Yeah, so I love I love the concept of authority positioning. I am actually practicing that as we speak, um, hosting a podcast and writing a book is on my short list. Writing multiple books, I have a number of ideas and concepts that I want to put to pen to paper and print. So I totally get the authority positioning, and I know the power of it. And folks, if you've been tuned into my world for any period of time, then you know that in March of 2019, I launched the podcast. December of 2019, we ran the Law Firm Growth Summit. From March to December, and of course, I have my history and I have the knowledge. It's not like I just woke up and said, "Oh, I'm going to be the somebody who coaches law firms on how to grow," and I have no idea how to run a business, and I have no So I have, of course, the know-how and the wherewithal. It's a matter of getting positioning. So first of all, folks, I focused on a niche. Focused on law firms. I stopped saying, okay, I can help every small business grow their business, and instead said, I'm going to focus on one particular industry, and I'm going to focus there. Even there, that might not be niche enough. Maybe I should be focusing just on PI or just on estate planning. I have friends in the industry who are doing just that. They've been on my shows and stuff like that. So you know who they are. But once I did that, then I started the podcast. I was a nobody, right? My email list was 56 people when I started the podcast, and then throughout the year, and by the way, if you want to start a podcast, don't lose your momentum because of watching how many people are listening, how many people are downloading, because when you first start, nobody knows about it, nobody knows about you, and that's an evolution that happens over time. The first 2 months that we were out, I think I had like a total of 100 downloads on like 10 episodes. You know how many people were listening to the show, right. And but consistently doing that over time. And that grew. And what happened is through the podcast, relationships were built with other people who had a platform, other people who had influence. And then I ran the summit, and I brought all those people together and gave them all a platform to be on. And we had 2,300 people attend that summit. And, of course, my list went from 50-something to 2,300 something. And now in 2020, there's a whole bunch of things that we're working on. And it's just created all of this momentum and elevated my status as an authority. And not like it's not so much about feeling good about yourself as it is for people to look up to you and think of you as the go-to person, the expert that they want to tune into. And that's how you need to position yourself. I love that you call yourself the authority positioning coach, because you can be the authority, right? You can just say, hey, I'm the authority, and that's it. You're an authority. Nobody's knighting people authorities, but it's how you let the marketplace know that you're an authority that's really key.
Well, there's in marketing, teaching marketing, there's something called the 4 Ps: product, price, placement, and positioning. And positioning, by definition, is in the mind of the consumer. So what do people feel and think about your brand in the mind of the consumer? So it's interesting you brought that point up, because it really is how you position yourself. You might have the cure for cancer. You might have the most amazing legal defense and concepts known to mankind. But if you're not in front of people, if you're not positioned as trustworthy, because you could still have an AOL account and have all of this great knowledge, but they're like, I don't know, you don't even have a website, and they're not going to give you the time of the day. But if they would have, you would have just revolutionized their life. So think of it like this. When someone gets referred to you, and you have, as an attorney, you get referrals and introductions, and they're not going to just blindly pick up the phone or email and say, please, send me your bill and let's get started. They're going to research you. There's a wonderful book out. Have you ever heard of this one called ZMOT? ZMOT?
No, I haven't.
So you can Google it and find a PDF download, and it's not like a pirated download. It's meant to be a PDF download. It's written by a former Google employee, and the whole gist of it is this. The ZMOT stands for Zero Moment of Truth. The moment of truth back in the day was, hey, I went to the car dealership. I met this guy, I got a glossy brochure, decided to buy the car. And the moment of truth is, do I like the car? Does it, last? And how does it drive? Today, the zero moment of truth is all the things we do before we get to the dealership. We research the brands and the models and the consumer reports and the Carfax and all these things. That's the zero moment of truth. It happens before the interaction happens. So as an attorney, the zero moment of truth is, let me check out those reviews online. Let me check out, their website, but I know their website is a sales mechanism. So I'm going to check out all the periphery to make sure they're a viable person, rather than they're just taking the word of this person that, you got on my radar because you were introduced to me or referred to me. Now I'm going to go Google you. What do we see? And do we see more than only your LinkedIn profile and your website? So of course you want to have some good reviews. That's a whole different conversation, but that's social proof. That's third party social proof. But guess what else that happens? And I kind of coined the term authority positioning assets, and think of like a website designer. Let me show you my portfolio. Here's this website I did. Here's this website. So I coined the phrase and got a federal trademark on authority positioning portfolio. So how do people see you as an attorney? Sure, here's your legal, pedigree. Wonderful. You have to have that. And sure, here's these reviews. You have to have that. But when we go online and we look and we find that, oh, you were mentioned in the media. Oh, you wrote this book on, the 3 critical mistakes that organizations make when choosing a fill in the blank, attorney. And you were interviewed on this podcast. I'm going to listen to that because I don't want to pick up the phone and email someone until I get a little bit of back knowledge. And so now all these things out there online, like breadcrumb trail, drawing people to you. And have you ever heard of the buyer's journey?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's like what you mentioned before. It's like the academic way of calling it a sales funnel. Funnel really is drawing people through step by step to make a buying decision. Well, the buyer's journey really is, as a consumer, unless we're buying something like gum or a pencil, we don't make a lot of decisions on that. We just buy what we're used to. But a larger decision, house, car, picking an attorney, you're going to go through a buyer journey to go, do I trust this person? Do I trust the brand, the company? What are other people saying? Do they resonate with me somehow? I don't know. I mean, in Denver here, there's a firm that you have these billboards called Law Tigers, and they all ride motorcycles. Well, they don't only represent motorcycles, but the psychographics of riding, I'll bet you they have rides up in the mountains with a lot of their clients. So, the point is, when you want your people to draw through your buyer's journey to at least hat bat, meaning a consultation to see if maybe there's a way you can work together, you have to educate them enough so that you're seen as an educator and advocate for their success. And then maybe you get that at bat. That's a big piece in that authority that you have to be positioned as. Having JD, your name is wonderful, first base, but the rest of it is they have to see you as credible, authentic, worthy, and all that to be able to see, can we do some business?
Absolutely. So I love this concept, and I have a number of questions around it. One question that I have is, how does this play into the other marketing stuff that we're hearing about all the time? Somebody needs to, when I think of positioning myself as an authority, am I constantly needing to put content out into the market? We mentioned a podcast as an option. Podcast only works if you're consistently doing it over and over again. Yep. A book is a different story. A book, you write it once, and it's out there. It's something that exists, and anybody can find it. You can hand it to people. My guess is that a book is not where it stops, that you then need to follow that up with speaking engagements and things like that come from the fact that you wrote the book. But how does this play into the other marketing concepts out there? And is it something that you need to do in conjunction with them? Like, I need to do this with my SEO strategy,
right?
Or is it kind of like, when I work with my coaching clients at the beginning, I tell them, we're starting with a clean slate. Forget everything you've done until now with marketing. We're going to look at all your marketing options, and we're going to figure out which is the right one for you. And so is this another one of those marketing things that we put on the chart that's, write a book or authority positioning.
So the marketing answer is it all depends. But think of it like this. It's not a replacement for, oh, you don't need to do X, you need to do Y. It's not that, because authority positioning and having a marketing strategy with authority positioning elevates everything else that you do. Here's what I mean. I found this recently, I love reading old books, like the Frank Bettchers of the world and the Napoleon Hills. But I found this old book and the title really caught my attention, and the application today is so critical. But the medium is the message. So which would you think would be more authoritative and expert like? If there was a really chunky blog post, a really good legal content on a blog or an article, online, or if that was in a book. Obviously, we know the answer to that. But what if there was oh, hey, I did this quick Facebook Live, talked about this topic. Or what if that was on your own podcast show? Now people are like, the medium, the platform that it's on elevates the message. If you're seen like that, then that elevates all your other marketing. So how can that relate to social media? What would happen if you didn't have a vibrant social profile and you reached out to the CEO of whatever company and go, oh, I'd love to connect with them. And you send that request through LinkedIn and they look at your profile and they're like, ignore. But what if you had some nice as seen on, hey, you can get the first chapter of my book called whatever, and it resonates with their industry. And now you're reaching out. They're like, oh, that person's legit. Click. Even subconsciously, they're like, oh, this person's not a hack. It doesn't have like 9 industries that they have done in the past, and now they're trying whatever. So if you're seen as that expert and that authority, it helps your social media be more effective. It helps your SEO be more effective. Now, SEO is a whole different strategy. I don't even touch that. But when you have good SEO for certain keywords, maybe there's a pay-per-click strategy, maybe there's an SEO strategy, but maybe some of these other things that are on page 1 of Google anyway about you, like when you have a certain keyword, like your location and whatever legal keyword you're looking at, you want them to click your website. But like I said, people intrinsically know your website is that sales mechanism. So what would happen on page 1 of Google if they're like, okay, here's that keyword, here's the people in the Google 3-pack, and here's, this person ranked pretty well, but they were also seen on, interviewed in, and now they might click on one of those 2 things and listen to the first 20 minutes of your podcast episode. Maybe they're not going to listen to the whole thing, but the fact that you're on a podcast talking about something intelligently, mention the media, maybe you had a book, but not even that right off the bat helps your SEO. Now that helps the click to that website. So I'm not going to say that it 10x's your SEO results, but it definitely enhances them when you're pre-framed. In NLP, it's called a pre-frame. When you're pre-framed as that expert, trustworthy expert, now maybe that SEO that's having your rankings increase, maybe that's going to help out that way. That's a really big piece to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other thing that you mentioned is that you do this as a done-for-you service. Can you talk more about that? Like, yeah. Are you writing a book for somebody? Like, how do you make this done for you?
Well, I have found just over the years myself that when you offer, and nothing against this model, but I just think that we all get so busy that it's like, instant message this and give me microwave that and drive through. I mean, we all are an instant gratification society. So I don't resonate myself personally with, let me go through a 12-week mastermind boot camp to learn how to do X so that then I can start working on maybe doing it one day possibly, and it'll just never happen. I got to week 3 and I'm bored. But if you go, here's why this is helpful, and I'm going to do it for you and hand it to you in about 2 weeks, and then teach you and train you on what to do to really amplify your business, now we're talking. So as soon as I made that shift to done for you, the light bulb went off. So here's how it looks. So one of my little, claims to fame is on the publishing side is, what are the first 6 letters of the word authority? Author. So why don't you go write me a book? Well, there's a disconnect between your head and your hands, right? You take that pen, you start writing or typing on the keyboard, and you get to a point where it's like, I don't know, I'm at a writer's block. But I can't tell you how many times I've gotten on a podcast interview with someone and inquisitively asked about their practice and, well, how does it work when this? And now how does that? and they just come to life, and they bring, and after the interview, they're like, I brought up examples that I never would have thought of. And that was just unbelievable. So it struck me one day, and I distinctly remember I was driving down the road, and this phrase, because I'd been doing this done for you publishing package for a while, but I now call it podcast, the number two, to publish. So podcast to publish. And it is literally helping you become an Amazon bestselling author without writing a word. And the way I do it is I get with you and go through this strategy. You go through an online, exercise that takes about 45 minutes that really clarifies your competitive advantage, your target audience, and what you do to transform their life in any profession. But in the legal profession, what are the 10 questions that you get most from people? What are the next 10 questions that they should be asking you, but they don't even know to ask yet? And what is the transformation you do in their lives legally? And so anyway, we get that strategy put together, and then I set up 2 really vibrant, full-length podcast interviews that spotlight the firm and extract out all that knowledge in a really specific flow. And then those 2 interviews become authority positioning assets because they're now syndicated out through the whole, network. So now people can start seeing those. That's wonderful. But then I take that and have it professionally transcribed, run it through editing, proofreading, make it flow as a conversation. See, the worst thing in the world is to read another textbook. No, don't think about a book as your law school books that you could barely get through. This is a book that you can read in a weekend because it flows. It's conversational. So literally, you have this strategy call on the front end, 2 podcast interviews, and then I'm going, oh, hey, here's the cover. What edits do you want? Okay, done. Oh, hey, here's the draft. Go through that. Just make sure, you don't want to add a line or 2, but done. And then I take that and we go Kindle, paperback, bestseller, and it is done in 30 days or less. So done for you is a massive thing. And then again, like you mentioned with podcasting, it doesn't matter how many book sales you get. It doesn't matter how many podcast downloads you get. You should have a podcast show, because when you are the one asking the questions, you're the one in that position of authority. But yet start Googling around how to start your podcast and what information or technology do you need. But what if I did it for you? What if I talk through the strategy so we know exactly how to use a podcast to grow your law firm? And then I just did it for you. And all you had to do was drop an MP3 in a Dropbox folder, and poof, I take it from there. I show you how to use it in your business development. I get it all the syndications done, the intros, the outros, everything done for you. And now that feels like, okay, I don't have to go learn something and hope I'm doing it right. You're doing it and then telling me what to do with it to integrate it in with our business. Because like you said earlier, yeah, you have a book, but then what do you do with it? Yeah, you have podcast episodes, but you got to keep up with it. And yes, you do have to keep up with it. But let me tell you one tip that people don't think about either the book or the podcast. Through that buyer's journey, don't you agree, Moshe, that you get questions from even attorneys you work with about, hey, how does your program work? Or what about frequently asked questions? What would happen if your response maybe was a quick video or a quick email back, but it said, oh, you know what? That's a really, really good question. In fact, I literally did a podcast episode on that very question. Here's the link. Listen to it, and then let's circle back around that so we can talk and then go from there. Well, now they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then maybe you were interviewing a thought leader about that specific, issue. And now they're hearing this interaction, and they're hearing the energy in your voice and the passion in your voice. And now they're learning from that podcast episode. And you learned that, or you use that as a business development tool to give them information and to prop you up and position you as an expert. Way back in the day, I remember this financial planner he wrote a book literally this thick. It was called Missed Fortune. And it was talking about how to use this financial tool. It was just really complicated financial, but he literally would never meet with someone until they read the book. So he would mail it out to them and go, okay, read this before you come in. It's called assignment selling. I don't think we have to be that, forceful about it, but having these little tidbits like, hey, here's this podcast episode. And when you come in, I'm going to give you a copy of my book, because that's going to be something really, really helpful to help you understand the strategy that I go through. So all of that done for you, because I guarantee you, if we pulled up right now, everyone listening to this interview and said, right now, let's look at your calendar. There's like 10 seconds here of open time and 2 minutes. You're busy. You don't have time to learn all this and do all this, but you know that if this was working for you, that it would elevate your practice above your competition. Why not have it done for you? But it is done with you, because there's never anything that surprises you. It's done for you because it's the feeling that there's no work on your part, but you have control all the way through to know, I love that. That's good. And then boom, you're not having to expend the brain power to learn or hope you're doing it right.
Yeah, I love this concept, and I'm a big fan of done for you services. I think that too many lawyers and as business owners try to do things themselves, and it's not the best use of their time. I do think that at certain steps of the way, they're learning how to do something is really important because you need to oversee that. So like
Yes.
for example, if you're implementing practice management software in your firm, right? You need to know whether people are using it properly. You need to know whether the information is actually there that you need. You need to know how to get information when somebody's not reachable or inaccessible. So it behooves you to learn the piece of software alongside the people in your firm. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you need to learn it to the point where you're the one installing it, you're the one setting it up. You just need to be a user of it like everybody else. So it's kind of like the same thing. You need to be able to hit record. You need to have a microphone. You need to be able to hit record and record that MP3 file, know how to save it.
Yeah.
But you don't need to know how to edit it. You just don't need to get lost in the weeds for that.
And you don't need to shoulder all the work yourself, because I would even submit this to you. I had a call yesterday with someone about a podcast, and they've got a whole team. And I said, here's the deal. And the owner's name is Eric. I said, Eric does not need to do everything himself, because the person that handles this division of the business, this vertical, that person has 2 or 3 people on their team. And so they can do episodes on that topic. And so probably the principal or the owner, they're doing like 1 episode every quarter, because they know their team they already trust is going to say and do, all the right things. Everyone's getting involved. And then that projects an even higher level of authority, because it's not just one person. You've got a whole team, because I just heard your guy talking about X, and that was really helpful. And then you came on talking about this, and boy, I want to be part of that team. So yeah, don't think to do it all, know it all, or actually execute everything. It's a collaboration. And when you have someone that's a guide, I like to say, I'm not a sage on a stage. I'm a guide on the side. I will guide you through. I will coach you like I'm a coach. I'm going to coach you through why it's important, do it for you, and then coach you on how to implement that so that it's part of your business. And you mentioned about, like the video. Think of it like this. Maybe there's an attorney that would say, you know what, our process is when we have people that would schedule up a time to come in or to schedule up a Zoom, we know about a week ahead, we know their appointment's coming up. What would happen if their email confirmation is, dear so-and-so, I'm looking forward to connecting with you next Thursday at 2 p.m. In the meantime, just wanted to send you a link to some of our, thought leadership articles. Here's a link on Forbes that we recently had produced. Here's a podcast episode where our owner, our principal, was really interviewed about a really critical piece of the case like we're going to talk about for you. And then also here's a link to our book on it, whatever the case is. But you pre-frame that meeting, so when they come on the Zoom or the in-person meeting, now all of a sudden they're not seeing you as some salesperson attorney. They're seeing you as an attorney, that's optimized, amplified with some of those things. Like they didn't have to listen to every syllable of that podcast episode or read every word of that article or book, but the fact that you had it, that's what sets you apart.
Yeah, we're doing this now here intuitively, because now that I've got 90 plus episodes, at the time of this recording, there's 91 episodes. By the time you guys listen to this, we'll probably be past 100. We have this wealth of information that's already there. I do free coaching sessions leading into my group coaching programs. And for those of you who don't know about that and are interested, you can go to profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. You can sign up for a free coaching session there. But on a free coaching call, I can tell you that on average, if I don't mention a minimum of 3 podcast episodes somewhere throughout the 90 minutes that we are together, to say, hey, I know we brought up this issue. I just want you to know, take a note. I have an episode that deals exactly with that. It's episode number such and such, and go listen to it after we're done. So in that coaching call, even if they didn't move forward with me, right? Even if they didn't take the next step into the coaching program, they got a lot of value in that coaching session. They now have answers to some of their questions by just going back to listen to more episodes, further elevating my authority, further elevating the possibility that one day they will decide to move forward with the next step with me. And the other thing is that when I outreach to new people on social media, so when I introduce myself to new people on LinkedIn, we have a process that we use here to connect with new people on LinkedIn. And what I do is in my initial message to them, So when I first reach out to connect, I say, hey, I'm looking to connect with law firm owners like yourself. I'm the host of the Profit Law Podcast, the Law Firm Growth Summit. So instantly they know why I'm trying to connect. But once they accept the connection, the very first message I sent to them is, hey, I'd like to get to know more about you. But as a law firm owner, I wanted to just share with you that I have this podcast. And one of the things that people ask me is like, okay, what is the best, like if I had to listen to one episode, like what's the best one to listen to? Here are the top downloaded episodes. I give them the 3 top downloaded episodes of all time in that initial message. So I know I'm giving them content that other people have loved. Yep. Now obviously I'm fueling the fire on those downloads because I'm choosing those same episodes to keep sharing. But would you know that the top downloaded episode of my podcast of all time is a replay of the Q&A call on the marketing night of the Law Firm Growth Summit? So it's like a 2-hour Q&A call where people are just asking questions about marketing and have a panel of experts that spoke that day that are answering it. It's not even my stuff. It's not even like the episode I did with my content. I'm just facilitating it. But that's, people are loving that episode. So
let's check this out.
Highlighting it.
That's an astounding idea. What if we put a pin in that and did what you said at the very beginning? Like, hey, when you notice a good idea, how can we adapt that for our business? So here's an attorney listening to this interview going, hey, well, Moshe said his greatest podcast episode was frequently asked questions because why? They're real questions that people were concerned with. So let's flip that around and go, here's a writer downer. As an attorney, do you have a Facebook group or page or however you communicate to your audience? Why don't you put it out there and go, hey guys, regarding whatever, sector or question, what is the biggest things that concern you about whatever? What if they did even just a YouTube video or a Facebook Live or something where they took frequently asked questions from their audience and they responded, they did a Zoom meeting with 10, 15 people on there and however you need to do it legally, but without giving legal advice, but speak to those things. Because if you found that FAQ session was really popular, maybe people in their industry would go, oh, wait a minute, on PI, I did have a question with what if this and what if that. And you sent me this session that you did, this brainstorming session, and that question was really, really amazing because here's the questions we cover. That's simple and easy. And how much does that cost? Oh yeah, nothing. That's reaching out and connecting to your audience. Let's bring up another Seth Godin, tribes, right? Creating, warmth and engagement within the audience, or he calls them the tribes, because then when they speak and you listen, they're a willing buyer.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea to turn it around for our audience. So thank you for putting that spin on it. And folks, you can do so many different things with this. It doesn't have to be video. It doesn't have to be audio. It could be a write-up. It could be that you just send out an email, to the people you're connected with, or put a post on social media and say, hey, what questions do you want answered? Or you could do like an Ask Me Anything. Hey, I'm doing a Monday Ask Me Anything. You put the post out on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you are, and just let people ask questions and let that build up over time. You'll see which one gets the most interaction. Like when somebody writes a question and all of a sudden everybody's pouncing on with, adding on to that question or clarification points or having an opinion about it, that's when you hit, a sore topic. Or
write an article on that particular one and go deeper and do a in-depth, whatever you want to call it, case study or mastermind or whatever. Yeah, let the public speak. And when your public, your prospects are like, boy, I'm just really confused about, give it to them, deliver it. Because, I like to say, and I know you've heard this before, but be that educator and advocate for the success of your target audience. Teach them, don't tell them. Have you ever heard of, oh boy, the name just left me, but, the Ultimate Sales Machine.
Yes.
So, back in the day, he comes in and he's like, don't sell. He would take these huge sales organizations and say, stop selling, teach. And when they flipped it around to going, hey, here's some pros and cons and myths and misconceptions and things to consider, and let me know if we can help you, they're like, hold up. The other guy was just pressuring me to sign right this second, and you're like, yeah, I just want you to make an informed decision. That just draws people to you because it's like, I could sell you right this minute if you wanted to, but Make an informed decision. Well, in legal matters, maybe it is something where you really do need to investigate some things and feel comfortable. So give that to people, play into that, because if you were buying a house or a car, you're not going to go with the very first person. You want to do a little bit of homework. Let your prospects do the same thing. And when you're giving that to them and guiding them, and here's another little ninja tip. If you know that in a certain type of legal case that they need to ask these 3 questions, whatever these 3 questions are, what if you were the ones providing those questions? Say, hey, I know as you're searching around for law firms to represent you, you're going to have some questions. And here's the top 3 that you must know. When this question comes up, the firms that you're talking to must answer it this way, because the way that we handle our cases is XYZ. And then the other question is, you have to be able to answer it this way. Now, what is that doing? They're like, oh, cool. Because I am going to call around and I'm going to ask these 3 questions. And they're always relating the other firm's answer to the question back to what yours is. Because you're like, hey, here's the reason that they need to answer it this way. And they're always comparing to you. And then subconsciously, they've got you elevated because they read your this and listened to your that. And now you're giving them some helpful tips. And they come back and go, you know what? These people just didn't even know how to answer the question. So yeah, when can we connect?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. A lot of pre-framing is an art, if you know what, there's a lot of education that you need to have as a firm owner, and one of the things I want to be careful about is not to overwhelm you. Walking away from this interview to be like, oh my gosh, I got to figure this out, I got to learn that. Pre-framing is an art. It takes it takes practice, and to find the right things, and a lot of it follows neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. So it would behoove you as a firm owner, as somebody who needs to be in the seat of negotiation, needs to be able to persuade people, that you learn those things. But it's not required for, you can achieve success without it. It'll just, like we said a lot earlier in this interview, it'll increase your percentage of conversion. It'll increase your ability to succeed. So I think that all these things take one day at a time. Start to add to your skill set slowly, and eventually you'll have this really good arsenal of skills that is just going to make you that rainmaker, that you hear about and see about, and you're like, wonder how come I'm not there. You can be. It's just add one skill on top of another.
There's a phrase that solves that entire concern of being overwhelmed and what do I do when and where. Real is rare. Because whether you said this or did that or whatever,
Mike, just repeat
interact
that,
with people.
Repeat that phrase one more time, because you got chopped off there. So
okay, real is rare.
Perfect.
Being authentic, being transparent, caring, not trying to fast talk someone or close the deal. So many times when I have a conversation with someone, I'll even start off by saying, "Look, at the end of this call, I'm not going to ask for your credit card. I'm just going to talk to you. I'm just going to learn about what you need and present some ideas. And if you resonate with some of them, or there seems to be, we want to work together, that's great. We'll call whenever next week. I'm not going to push you, but just tell me, what are you struggling with?" Real is rare. And depending on the legal matter, these might be like gut wrenching legal matters. It's not just like, oh, file this and then let me know when it's done. Sometimes it's like gut wrenching, and you need to be compassionate, caring, transparent, authentic. So when you are real, that just smooths everything out. So that transcends anything that we're talking about here today. And then when you're real and authentic and you're seen as that expert, all of that just comes together so nicely. So yeah, that's a really, really good point you bring up, Moshe.
Yeah. And we were talking about this in our green room conversation.
Yeah, literally.
We were talking about your video setup and my video setup, and this is how we ended up. Like, just be yourself, just be real, just show up as yourself in the audience, and and don't be so worried about how you look and what image are you portraying. Yep. Like just I was
watching a Facebook Live. One of my clients was doing this Facebook Live, and he's a motivational speaker, and he was in the middle of this thought and he sneezed, just a big old sneeze, and he kept going. Anyone else would have been like, cut, let me start over. He just went, and I'm like, yes. Because if you have to scratch your nose, if you have to adjust your, microphone, we're real, we're human. And if the dog barks in the background, okay, we had some work going on outside. Being real is where it's at. And because really, people are like future pacing to what it would be like to work with you. And if you're just normal, approachable, helpful, listening, that's the way that they know that they're going to get when they're working with you during the process of the case. So I think that's a really big thing. And that has nothing even to do with, marketing or authority positioning. It's just like caring for people.
Yeah, these days, anybody who's listening to the podcast with good headphones on is going to hear my kids, my dog, because I can't help what the situation is. They're here in the house, and that's where the recording's happening. Just during our interview, I don't know if you heard it, but my dog has been barking. My kids are screaming upstairs. I mean, I'm like, I keep hitting the mute button, hoping that that people are not going to be able to pick up on it. But ultimately, it's that's the reality. Hey, look, I'm a dad of 5 kids.
Yep.
I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they're just going to scream when they're going to scream.
Yeah.
And I've got a dog who, he loves the mailman because the mailman gives him a treat. So when the mailman comes at this time of day, he's going to be barking at the window until the mailman goes by. And that's just the way it is. All right. So Mike, I have a question for you, and then I want to wrap this up because we're just about out of time.
Okay.
It sounds like this is a great idea. Like in concept, like, okay, great. We went through this whole thing and I'm sold, right? I want to be an authority. I want to position myself. I want to call Mike right now and I want to get going. What kind of budget is somebody looking at to become an authority? Done for you means instead of me spending my time, I'm spending my money, right? So if somebody's a brand new law firm with no budget, obviously they can't do that. So at what level, at what point should somebody say, okay, this is something that I should consider and look to have done for me, as opposed to needing to put the sweat equity in?
Yeah, great question. And I'm not going to shy away from it and go, well, it's all customizable and I'm not going to say anything, because you need to have a frame of reference. So it depends on what you're looking to accomplish long term. It depends on the size of the firm. If you're a solopreneur or solo attorney, you're not going to be you signing up for a year-long, massive package. You're going to dip your toe in the water. But yet, if you are a larger firm with multiple lines of business and people handling each one, you go, look, I can task this person to do this. Let's roll. I've got a package for each of those. So for instance, if it was just a matter of, look, you know what, I could talk on a microphone and I can be interviewed. I'm not ready to do a podcast. Well, let's just do a series of interviews on my show where I do the interview, spotlight your business about a specific thing so that we can have like a point of reference for that buyer's journey. And we write a media and press release about that and get that syndicated out there online so that you can use it in your business development process. You can be seen online. And that's a simple first step. And that's as low as $500 for one interview, where I do a bundle of 3 for $1,000. Simple. If you start now getting into podcast and doing the book production, so I'll just give you an idea there, having your own podcast show all set up, done for you, $250 a month for up to 4 episodes. There's people that charge $300-$400 a month just to get you interviewed on a couple shows, not running your show for you. So super affordable. And then the book, literally, I've got different packages, but it ranges anywhere from $1,500 to $15,000, and it all depends on what you need. So it's not like, oh my word. Literally, I was doing some research this weekend for an event that I'm doing with the Strategic Alliance, and we're looking at these book packages, and there are people that literally, truly are charging, and I've got this all screenshotted and documented, charging between $30,000 and $60,000 to get your book done. That's insane. You might need a book for this vertical and that. You don't want to be paying that. So being able to be in between $1,500 and $15,000 on the high end, which also that higher end includes a podcast package. So it's nowhere near unaffordable, but it definitely is something you got to start somewhere, and you don't do it all at once. You start small and you see how that gets integrated into your business and how easy that, like, oh, do you normally send an email confirmation for a meeting coming next week? Oh, of course. Well, then all you have to do is add this piece to it there, and that'll help, you be pre-framed well. Oh, I could do that. So it's not hard. It's just let it be done for you and let it fit your budget. But yeah, like you can tell, real is rare. I'm authentic, where I'm not going to fast talk someone into doing something that doesn't benefit them. I'm open to having a conversation, learning about what the need is. If there's something that fits, great. If not, we'll talk later. I'll give you resources. I'll help you with anything that I can help with. And starting with a copy of my book, Authority Marketing for Law Firms. I can give a free copy of the book away.
Awesome. So authority marketing for law firms is definitely the starting point. So how can people get their hands on that book?
So you can go to authoritymarketingforlawfirms.com, and that is literally a workshop, video workshop of me talking through the concepts of using a book in the practice. You don't even need to opt in. In fact, the way that I start off the session is, hey, you know what? Here's the cool thing. How many times do you get offered something of value, like a workshop like this? And you got to give the email, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I say in this presentation, I don't even know who you are. You might be watching this right now, and I don't know where you came from. I just want to give some value. So at the end of the presentation, if you want to schedule up a call, wonderful. The link's down below. If you want to copy my book, wonderful. Schedule up a call, and I'll drop a copy in the mail to you. So the point is, Authority Marketing for Law Firms, learn this specific strategy and schedule up a call. I'll send you a copy of the book. I'm not going to be pushy, and you're not going to be on my email list. It goes right to the video. It'll start, and you can learn right from there.
Awesome. I love it. Mike, what are your parting words of wisdom for our audience? One final thought, and just one. Okay, not 10 of them, just one final thought for somebody who's listening to this who, really loved this episode and just wants to have that takeaway of, one action item or one thing that they should walk away from this with.
Building your authority is your number one priority.
Awesome. Building your authority is your number one priority. You heard it here, folks, on the Profit with Law podcast. We're with Mike Saunders from the Authority Positioning Coach, and this was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful interview. I loved the concept, the idea, and I love even more that you can have it done for you. So if that's in your budget, if it's something that you can afford to do, it almost sounds like a no-brainer. You definitely have me sold here on the end of the show. So, but I do appreciate, Mike, that your authenticity, the realness that you bring, you practice what you preach, obviously, and I'm really impressed with the way that you put yourself out in the marketplace. And I think that of all things, people should take note of that. Like, that is what made an impression on me, and therefore you should consider doing things like that within your own marketing outreach intake process. So folks, show notes are going to be at profitwithlaw.com/episode number. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you're new to the show, you haven't subscribed yet, and you want to get more episodes like this, if you hit the subscribe button, we'll show up in your podcast player feed. And you'll know when we go live, which is twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday. And Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Moshe.
And that is the end of the replay of our episode with Mike Saunders. I knew you would love it. I know you agree with me. That was just fire. An amazing conversation that I had with Mike. Really like what he created and what he's doing. And it's just an example of what's possible with information products. Think about what he's doing and how that can translate into the legal space, how it could translate into your specific law firm, your specific practice area, and what you might be able to do with it. The reason I'm highlighting these different interviews with you is to show you there's so many different ways to take your knowledge and share it with the world in a way that is strategic in the growth of your law firm or the growth of your overall business. And I want you to start thinking differently about this. I want you to start considering what this might look like for you. Which one of these sounds exciting to you? Which one of these sounds like something that you can do? And then I want you to come to the Hidden Revenue Summit. This is a one-day event where we will walk you through the process of unlocking this hidden revenue. So join us on June 15th. Register now. profitwithlaw.com/hidden revenue. profitwithlaw.com/hidden revenue. Can't wait to see you there. Take care. That's it for this week's episode of Profit with Law. If you have enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with at least one person. Imagine how many lives we can change if we each shared this episode. Another way to share the episode is on social media. We appreciate your support and look forward to you joining us again next week.